All right, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to another class. Today we'll be starting the first class on grammar and mechanics, right? So before we even start, let's go to our word of the day. So our word of the day is rancid, and it's an adjective. And rancid means having an unpleasant smell or taste. It can also describe something that is offensive, or distasteful. Did you know that rancid traces its roots to the Latin ranciere? I don't know Latin, I don't pronounce it. But this is a verb meaning to stink. Not long after entering the English language in the 17th century, rancid developed a second meaning for other non-sensory offenses. Example, rancid hypocrisy. And other synonyms of this word would be putrid, smelly, etc., etc. Right? So let's start the class. So what is grammar and what is syntax? So grammar comprises the entire system of rules for a language, including syntax. And syntax deals with the way that words are put together to form phrases, clauses, and sentences. So under the grammar and mechanics unit, the very first thing that we're going to cover is using parts of speech. So our nouns, pronouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions. Yeah, all of these things. And in your CSEC exams, you will be tested on these, especially in paper one, there's a few questions that will refer to usage and all of those things. And also you will be marked generally on your grammar and syntax in your writing in paper two, right? So let us start with nouns. And for this class, we're just going through the problems that we face while writing and using parts of speech. So we're just going to clarify some things pertaining to this because I'm sure all of you guys would know what parts of speech are, right? So nouns. Nouns name people, places, animals, things, and ideas. We all know this. Some rules that come with using nouns. Proper nouns are always capitalized. Hinduism, Marxism, the Renaissance, etc., etc. A common noun that can be counted is called a count noun. They use the quantifiers several, many, a couple of, a number of, a few. So example of count nouns are cups, suggestions, thoughts, cars. So you can have different quantifiers in using these nouns. So you can have 4 cups, several suggestions, many thoughts, a number of cars, right? So generally count nouns, they can be counted. I mean, the name says it. And then we have non-count nouns that use the quantifiers a great deal of, much, not much, little, a little, less, or a word that indicates a unit. Example, a bag of sugar, right? So non-count nouns include advice, sunshine, furniture, internet, equipment. And you might, well, you're very likely to buck up on problems with non-count nouns, especially furniture. In my experience, furniture was one thing that caught me off guard while doing my English course, right? So apart from that, quantifiers like all, any, some, and a lot of are used by both count and non-count nouns, right? And generally, non-count nouns do not have a plural form. So watch out for that. All right, so collective nouns like team, family, herd, and orchestra are treated as a singular unit unless the people or things in the group are acting as individuals. So an example of this, my family is hard to deal with. So is a singular verb. So that means that family is treated as singular. The herd grazes in the field. Again, another example of a singular collective noun. The group were passing around a bottle of beer. So here we see that the group is being used in a plural sense, as I should say, right? And so it kind of sounds weird in a way, the group were passing around a bottle of beer. So instead we can say the group of troublemakers were passing around a bottle of beer, right? So you might have to use another noun to give the group more identity, right? So that the sentence doesn't sound off or weird. And another example is half of the students are failing the course. So again, we can use the amount of or number of the collective nouns to use them in the pure sense, sorry. So most proper nouns are not used with articles. Some exceptions of this rule are events or periods of time. Example again, the Renaissance. Structures, the Eiffel Tower. Nouns that include the word of or countries that are 2 or more words long. So the Dominican Republic, the People's Republic of China, all of these things. They don't usually use articles. And we know that articles are the, etc. Right? Nouns. So, nouns of foreign origin most times retain foreign plurals. And here we have some examples: phenomenon, phenomena, crises, crisis, formula, formulae, fungus, fungi, and yeah. Compound nouns form their plural according to the nature of their component parts. So an example is mothers-in-law, not mother-in-laws. Passers-by, not passer-bys, right? So you have to watch out for those as well. And then some nouns have 2 different plurals varying with their meaning. So we know that geniuses are brilliant or smart people. Genii is magical spirits. Indexes is a list of contents. Indices are used in math. Dies are stamped for coins. Dice are used in games. Staffs are a body of officers or assistants. And then staves are sticks, supports, or lines in music. So with that being said, we can go on to pronouns. And pronouns stand instead of or take the place of a noun. So we know that there are many types of pronouns, and pronouns are another thing that will be tricky in your exams. So here we have 9 types of pronouns in all. And so the first is personal. And personal refers to specific people or things. So I went to the show with her. So personal pronouns are the usual. We know those. So now we can go on to interrogative. And these are pronouns used to ask questions. So who, whatever, whom, what, which, whomever, who is it, what do you want? These are just used to ask questions. Relative pronouns relates a dependent clause to an antecedent noun or pronoun. And we know that the antecedent is the noun or pronoun that another pronoun refers to, right? So the man who killed her is the one that I saw. So here, who would be the relative pronoun, right? So demonstrative pronouns points out or indicates nouns or other pronouns. So examples are this, that, the former, the latter, these. So this is older than that. Mine are better than those. Yeah, these are all demonstrative pronouns. Then we move on to indefinite pronouns. And these refer to a non-specific person or thing. So somebody, someone, anyone, anybody, nothing, few, each, something, anything. All of these are indefinite pronouns. Reciprocal pronouns, they refer to separate parts of their plural antecedent. So each other, one another. My sister and I are close because we live near each other. These are reciprocal pronouns. Reflexive pronouns, these refer back to the subject. So, example, many of the women blamed themselves for the problem. So you can see that the intensive and reflective have the same examples of pronouns, but it's just that they're used in two different senses. So intensive pronouns add emphasis to the nouns or pronouns they follow. So an example of this is, I did it myself. So it is referring back to the pronouns or noun that it follows. So possessive pronouns, lastly, indicates ownership. Again, we're very familiar with these: mine, mine, your, yours, her, hers, his, its, our, ours. Yeah, all of these are possessive pronouns. So, along with types, pronouns also have different cases, and cases meaning that they have different roles in a sentence, just like nouns do. So nouns can be the subject or the object, and they can also be possessive, and pronouns are the same, right? So we have I, me, mine, who, whom, whose. All of these show how the pronoun can act in a sentence in regards to its role. So here are some rules now. Interrogative pronouns, a rule regarding to those. Question marks aren't used to indicate a question in reported or indirect speech. So in writing, when a character is speaking, we can say, who are you, with the quotation marks, right? And also the question mark. But then I asked him who he was, means that the speech is reported. So it's not direct speech. It's not who are you? It is I asked him who he was. So that means that the question mark doesn't need to be at the end of the sentence, right? So in relative pronouns, who, which is used in the subject case, and whom, which is used in the object case, are used for people, while which, subject and object, is used for animals and things. That can be used for both persons and things when introducing a defining clause, right? So who, whom, which, and that, they also cause a lot of problems during the exam and just generally. We as Caribbean people, we don't really use whom as much, so it's almost a unfamiliar subject. So in order to understand when to use who or whom, we have to see what the pronoun is doing in the sentence. So is it the subject? Is it the object? Yeah. So let's continue. Relative pronouns in the sentences. So the man that I met at the station was my brother. And again, we know that that can be used for both people, animals, and things and places. This is a house that Jack built. So we see it's used for a person, the man, and also a thing, the house. So Mr. Smith, whom I knew well, waved at me. How do we know that whom is supposed to be used in this sentence? Well, we can rearrange the sentence. So we can say, I knew him well. And we know that him is also used in the object case. So whom would have to be used in the sentence. So the train, which was late, left at 7:30 p.m. And again, which can be used for both people and things, right? The town, whose inhabitants were mainly factory workers. So whose here refers to the inhabitants in the factory. And we know that whose is also used in the possessive case. So here we have who with a parenthetical clause. So the man who I thought was dying made a rapid recovery. How do we know that who should be used in the sentence? Again, we reconstruct the sentence. So I thought he was dying. And we know that he is used in the subject case. So who would have to be used here? Who did you say was coming? And then we can answer this and say he was coming, right? So who has to be used here as well? Whom with infinitive construction. The man whom I thought to be dead revived. So what's an infinitive construction? It is just the infinitive form of a verb, which means to be dead. That would be the infinitive construction. So to go, to cry, to sleep, all of these are the infinitive construction. So whom would have to be used here. So it would be, I thought him to be dead. So now we move on to demonstrative. The former and the latter must not be used when speaking of more than two persons or things. So such means of that kind, because sometimes you might want to use it in your sentence. And one or ones can also be used as demonstrative pronouns. Example, the ones that I chose, right? An example of the demonstrative using the former and the latter is, it was raining and there was lightning in the air. Mary didn't mind the former problem, but the latter one troubled her because she was afraid of thunder. So here we see there are only two options being used here, which is why the former and the latter can be used. So only use them when there are two ideas or persons or things that are being referred to. And so indefinite pronouns can be singular, plural, or both. And here we have a little table showing the singular, plural, and both of the indefinite pronouns. So this is another issue that I know from experience can cause you to lose marks. So anybody, anyone, anything, each, either, etc., etc. All of these are singular. So they will be using singular verbs. And then both, many, few, several are plural. And I think the plural is the most well-known of the indefinite. So I don't think many people have problem with these because they're referring to plural things, obviously. And then both, whether singular, are plural. They're all, any, more, most, some. So you have to be careful and check the context of your sentence before choosing a singular or plural verb. So reciprocal pronouns. Each can be used for two or more individuals or items. Each, other, either, and neither are only used for two individuals or items. So never use these things with more than two references in a sentence. Right. So reflexive pronouns. They are used with reflexive verbs to show that the action happens to or affects the doer. Example, he cut himself. Intensive pronouns. These pronouns have the same form as the reflexive, but they add emphasis to the subject being the doer of the action. Example, I did it myself. We need money ourselves. So note the difference between these two pronoun types and ensure that you understand what your sentence is requiring before you choose one. Possessive, never add an apostrophe before or after the S of his, hers, ours, yours, and theirs. I know it's kind of common sense, but you never know when you might be caught off guard by the possessive. And so here we have a little activity And what we're supposed to do is to see whether or not the pronouns used in the sentence are right or correct. Right. So you're supposed to read the sentence and see if it is correctly written or if any of the pronouns have to be changed. So I'm going to give you some time to do that, and then we will come back. Or you can pause the video and try these questions. So here are the answers to the previous activity. So before, I think it was, he's a footballer whom I think will play for England. But the correct pronoun would be who, not whom. Because again, who is a subject pronoun. So of course, we have to refer back to the subject case for who versus whom, right? So he's a footballer who I think will play for England. All right, so let's see the second sentence. Between you and I, Henry has made a serious mistake. And so the answer is, between you and me, Henry has made a serious mistake. Why is this the answer? Well, who is the subject of the sentence? Henry is the subject. Also, ignore the question mark at the end. Should be a full stop. But anyways, Henry is the subject of the sentence. So you and me is an objective phrase. So me, of course, we know is an objective pronoun. So it can't be you and I. It has to be you and me. Number 3, the 3 brothers divided the money between each other. And we know that each other can't be used for more than 2 people or things, right? So I can say the 3 brothers divided the money between themselves. Number 4, this is the man which did it. The answer should be, this is the man who did it. So, he did it. So it has to be who. Again, this is the subject case. I think before I said that which is used for people, it should be used for things, right? My bad on that. Whom was this done by? At any rate, it wasn't him. So here we have a hint at the end. Him is object, whom is also object. So it has to be whom. Before it was who, but now it has to be who. So this hat is not mine. Is it hers? Again, hers is possessive. Before there was apostrophe between the R and the S. We know that that cannot work. That doesn't exist. So it is hers, H-E-R-S, no apostrophe. Number 7, let you and I do this alone. Again, we can just change it and say, let us do this alone, right? And lastly, one must be aware of your health if happy living is one's goal. And so the last answer is, one must be aware of one's health if happy living is one's goal. So one's has to be used as the possessive here because we want a clarity or balance in the sentence. So if you start off with one as the subject, you have to continue using it, whether it's in the object or possessive, throughout the sentence, if one is the subject. Same thing with other pronouns. I, he, she, it, they, all of these must be consistent throughout the sentence if it is the subject. So here it has to be one's and not yours, right? So thank you all for listening. I hope you would have understood all that happened. And I will put the link below of the video that was supposed to be played so that you can watch it yourself for your own viewing. So I hope you all would have learned something. Thank you for listening again. And please contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.